Hey everyone, this is Ryder from Skip. I hope you're doing well. It's Sunday, February 7th. Very quick video update today. I'm going to talk about a few important things, including a new proposal in the stimulus package, which is good news that just came out this morning. I'm also going to recap, of course, what I talked about yesterday, that SBA issues updated EIDL loan and EIDL grant information. If you missed yesterday's video, I highly recommend watching it. There's so much information that the SBA released a few days ago, and we covered it on our blog and app. It's what you see right above me here, but you can also see it on our app, Hello Skip, in the App Store. Mainly today, I'm going to answer your questions. So many great questions from yesterday's video related to EIDL grant funding eligibility, timelines, getting more funds, getting reconsiderations, and everything in between. So I'm going to start there and answer your questions. I'm going to try to get through as many as possible. Thanks, as always, for supporting us and subscribing, and I hope you're having a great weekend. And of course, enjoy the Super Bowl if you're planning on watching it. Let me start with the comments. There were around 400 yesterday. A good portion of those are, of course, the Instagram scammers. But let me just dive in and start answering questions. Then I'm going to talk about the stimulus update and ask questions in this video as well. I'll do my best to answer them. Question from Renee here, similar to many other people, by the way. Essentially, her question is targeted EIDL grant versus regular EIDL grant. And if you don't qualify for targeted, what are your options? I've said this a few times, but basically it is wait and see. You know, if anyone tells you otherwise, they don't know yet. It is all dependent on SBA funding. This is what we've heard time and time again from the SBA. They're going to prioritize two groups, targeted EIDL folks, then targeted EIDL folks who applied last year and didn't receive anything. So they're going to focus on the targeted groups first, and then if there's funding left over, and there's going to be a new SBA administrator, which may be good news, I'm optimistic about, they will then hopefully open up the funding. You know, if they have $40 billion to spare, what I've said time and time again is, I don't think that $40 billion is going to be anywhere near spent for targeted folks. We're tracking that data on our app, trackeidlgrant.com, and I just checked a few minutes ago, and it's still looking good. There's plenty of funding. So I'm hoping that after they send out these emails, and they're sending out more this week to the targeted folks, they will then decide, okay, let's go back through and reconsider the people from last year. That's my hope. Rowan had a similar question here. All right, and then we get into the spammers, Michael Smith 4549. By the way, those are all scammers. We still get emails from people confused by, oh, should I trust Michael Smith? The answer is no. And while I'm at it, if you aren't following us on Instagram, feel free to. We're at hello.skip. We publish near daily, so as an alternative to the videos, we'll give you some main takeaways from the EIDL, PPP, stimulus checks, even a Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes meme as well. So that's hello.skip on Instagram. Follow us so you're not tricked by any of these other scammers that we see. Evan right here asks about an email he got from the SBA regarding loan payments, but he hasn't heard anything about the grant. Is that normal? Yes, Evan, that's normal. If you are eligible for the grant, the SBA will email you separately, but it is common for people to hear about one and not the other, so that's normal. Charlie asks, he hasn't gotten an email yet from the SBA. Should I call them or wait? I would wait. I have heard from people that they've gotten emailed yesterday and Friday, so I expect the emails are continuing, so you don't need to stress about that. But if you don't hear anything end of next week, and of course I'll report on the news that we hear as well, but if you don't hear anything end of next week, maybe give them a ring to say, hey, I think I qualify. Everyone's hearing but me. How much time can I expect? Now, based on our information, they're doing it in an order based on original application. So if you were early to apply last year, you may have heard already, and so forth. So if you applied in April, May, June, as far as I know, they're staggering it similar to that. But as we know, with the SBA system, it's not perfect, and there are exceptions to every rule. Teresa asks if she applied for an EIDL grant back in April and got nothing, and you're in a low-income area, will they be reaching out to you again? My answer would be, I hope so. Now, have you heard from the SBA at all? I'd double-check your email just to make sure that they didn't send you any email about either approval or denial. But if you haven't heard anything and you applied last year and you have an application number, then they should be contacting you. Thanks, Daniel, for the shout out here. Tiffany, your question, does anyone know when they'll reach out to those that applied but never got grant or loan funding first round? Similar to what I just answered, they're getting through all of it. It's taking time. Thanks for the shout outs, Robert, Anya, Angelina, and Nia. YouTube, Brandon, and Angie. And Angie, your question, how long will it take for the SBA to get back to you after you submit application? Are you speaking of the EIDL loan or EIDL grant? That would be my specific question, but both can take weeks. Of course, we have heard of situations, especially recently, by the way, if you applied for a loan recently, you may hear back in a few days. I don't think there is a large backlog on the EIDL loans. Most people who have qualified for a loan would have applied last year sometime. You already thought about that and you went after that option. What I think lots of people aren't thinking about, though, is applying for a first-time EIDL loan or getting reconsideration, either a little bit more money, or if you were denied, you can still ask for reconsideration. And I talked about that in detail in yesterday's video. And of course, it's on this post above, which is right on the app. Wednesday asks, what if they said they couldn't verify your bank account? This would be a situation where if you went to the portal and you haven't heard anything, I would call them to make sure they have the right information, because usually in this case, everything else is squared away. And if you're just waiting for them to get you the money or verify your bank account, I would call the SBA. Michael asked that he's still waiting for a PPP loan. If you're still waiting, it's not uncommon. The majority of people actually are still waiting. So I would say if you've been waiting a couple weeks, it's not a bad idea to think about applying through another PPP lender. You can apply to as many lenders as you want for a PPP loan. The lenders don't really like it because the way it works is once they approve your application, they submit to the SBA, and then the SBA will compare, okay, we see Michael hasn't been approved yet, so we can approve him for this loan. So it's first come, first serve with the SBA. If they find that, okay, well, Chase approved you already, then they'll reject any new application. So basically, it's up to the SBA to determine that every business only gets one PPP loan. But Michael, if you want to apply through Bluevine, you can go to trackpploan.com or Credibly and Funding Circle. I will leave those links in the description. Josh, same for you as well. If you applied through Bluevine, that means you have a portal that you can log into. So log into that portal, and on that portal, you will be able to apply for a second PPP round. They emailed most people about this, but you don't need to wait for the email. You can actually log into your Bluevine portal and apply for a second PPP round. Lisa asks about the EIDL grant. If you didn't accept an EIDL loan, will that affect your EIDL advanced status? The answer is no. Based on everything I've heard, there are two separate things. So if you were offered a loan and you didn't want it, that's fine. You completely have that option. So they're two separate things. So that should not affect the remaining $9,000 if you are eligible for the targeted EIDL grant. So no need to worry there, Lisa. So that's several quick answers right now. By the way, quick caveat, all of this is for illustrational purposes only. If you have specific questions about your situation, talk to an expert, talk to someone who can help you, but this is for illustrational purposes only, based on all the publicly available information. Tammy asks specifically about how to calculate gross receipts, I believe, when you're filling out the targeted EIDL grant application, which income to use, your 1099 or your W-2 income. Okay, that's a great question. Many people have asked that as well. I pulled up the SBA guidelines. How does SBA define gross revenue receipts? Because that is specifically what they ask for on that form. Here's what they say. Gross receipts include all revenue in whatever form received or accrued in accordance with the entity's accounting method, broad, from whatever source, including from the sales of products or services, interest, dividends, rents, royalties, fees, or commissions, reduced by returns and allowance for the applicant business. Now, in this specific case, since you're applying with a business, and I assume that business is your 1099 income, based on that and what I'm reading here on the SBA website is you would count the business income only and not your personal income if that's W-2, since if I'm reading between the lines, your W-2 income might be something else and not your business. However, it's the same thing, then you would combine them because it's specific to the gross revenue for the business. Mrs. Love asks us about the rule change, and the short answer is yes, the targeted EIDL grant program is new. It wasn't mentioned at all in the CARES Act. I believe they put that specifically in place with the intent of helping people who needed it the most. Now, whether that is a good measure or not, I think we can all debate. The point is that this is new. As long as the SBA works within the law, they can make the rules of the program any way they want. A few people have asked this too. I can't remember if I already answered, but if you already got the full $150,000 EIDL loan, you cannot apply for more funding unless, and there's two reasons that are on the SBA sheet that we've covered also on our blog, unless you have a second business that may qualify, or unless you qualify under another disaster provision. So that could be flooding or wildfires. But the answer is no, you can't get more at this moment in time. RLG222, you're asking about the back and forth between you and a loan officer, that they emailed you but you never heard anything. You say you were probably denied. So my question for you would be, well, they would tell you if you are denied and the reason. So if you haven't gotten the reason as to why you were denied or haven't heard, I would email them, either the loan officer who emailed you, or call the SBA, which may be better, because often what happens is a loan officer will have your file for a certain period of time. Then some of them are contractors as well, so they may have moved on, or they're doing something else, or they are not on your case anymore. If you don't hear back from the loan officer, I would call the SBA directly. Fonda, you're wondering about reconsideration. You're still waiting to hear back from the SBA. Many people are in that boat as well. I believe they're doing the best they can, but it can't hurt to follow up. One of the things that we found is, of course, there are people reviewing applications one by one, so you may need to follow up periodically to keep on them. It's always a good practice in my opinion. There's a few more questions as to what counts as income, and for that, again, I would look at number 28 here. I know it's still broad, and I'm going to try to dig up some more information if they specify it anymore, because I'm seeing a few questions about PUA and kind of the income. So let me look that up and I'll answer it in tomorrow's video as well. Again, many of the questions are around what to expect in terms of getting an email from the SBA. So basically it's sit and wait right now. There's no action needed for a targeted EIDL grant. They will either email you or not. If you're still waiting in a week or two, it can't hurt to bug them. Hey, am I on the list or not? Now here's a question I've seen a few times related to PPP, if you can request more money and increase on your first loan. The answer is yes. Yes, you can. And I'm going to pull it up here because if you are a seasonal business or a hospitality business, the rules changed for you. You can get more money, 3.5 times your monthly payroll. According to the policy guidance, you can go back and work with your lender, whether it's Chase, Wells Fargo, Bluevine, Credibly, Funding Circle, and get a higher amount. In practice, the rollout of this has been very messy for one main reason. This isn't very common. I mean, it applies to many of you, but it's not the bulk of applications. So most people have not done an automated system for it. So what we've heard from Bluevine is on an ad hoc basis, they may work with you. So if you email them, basically the customer support team will work with you to say, okay, let's review your application. That may take longer because it's a manual review, but it is possible. Seasonal businesses, hospitality businesses, you can go back and get more PPP funding. That's based on the policy guidance from the SBA, but it's a bit messy, so you'll need to be a little bit patient there. Okay, because I want to keep this short, I will answer more questions tomorrow, both from this video and yesterday's video, so stay tuned. Here's the big news I want to end on. House Democratic leaders will unveil legislation on Monday that will give millions of families at least $3,000 per child. This is advancing a key provision in Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. This is called the Enhanced Child Tax Credit Bill. According to a committee spokesperson, $3,000 per child. Here's a quote: "The pandemic is driving families deeper and deeper into poverty, and it's devastating. We are making the child tax credit more generous, more accessible, and by paying it out monthly, this money is going to be the difference in a roof over someone's head or food on their table." This is from Richard Neal, who's chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. I'll keep you posted on that, but basically the legislation would provide $3,600 per child under the age of 6 and $3,000 per child age 6 through 17 for a single year. The full benefit is available to single parents earning up to $75,000 annually and for couples earning up to $150,000 annually. Payments would phase out after those thresholds. If that applies to you, I'd love to hear in the comments, especially if you have questions. I'll cover that tomorrow, as well as any new news on EIDL grants, PPP loans, stimulus checks. As always, thank you so much for subscribing and supporting us. Stay well, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow.